Hi, everyone, and welcome to Coffee with Innovate Finance, our podcast series where we speak to industry leaders on financial innovation and fintech. Our podcasts are available on Spotify, Apple Music, and Google Podcasts. My name is Roberto Napolitano. I'm a marketing director at Innovate Finance, and today I'm delighted to be joined by Mary Abesanwa, fintech growth lead at Seccl, the data network that powers the tools millions of people rely on to live a healthier financial life. Mary, thank you very much for joining us today.
Hi, Roberto. Great to be on your podcast.
It's a pleasure. So can you tell us more about Seccl?
Sure. Really excited to be sharing with Innovate Finance members and being on the podcast today. So Seccl, we are part of Octopus Group. We see ourselves as Stripe for investment. So as you said, we are a technology provider. We are also a UK-based regulated custodian, and we are behind leading UK-based fintechs that want to offer investment propositions or launch investments to their customers. What that essentially means is we do investing as a service. We are an infrastructure player. We are a B2B fintech, enabling people to have access to financial markets, which is really exciting. Data shows that there's about £800 billion, if not more, yet to be unlocked in retail wealth management. So we are driving that. We are enabling more and more people to have access to getting more for their money through investments. And it's a really exciting space.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mary. And then in terms of your role at Seccl as fintech growth lead, can you tell us more about your role, your responsibilities, and what the projects you're working on at the moment?
Sure. So I've been at Seccl for almost a year. And my role, as you said, is fintech growth lead, which is essentially driving sales and relationships and partnerships with fintechs that are looking to use Seccl's API technology. We also support IFAs, so advisors, and kind of your traditional wealth management businesses. But we see the future of wealth management being disrupted very much so by fintechs that are attractive to millennials and Gen Z and to people who want to maybe manage their money in a more modern way. So I'm really excited to be talking on a daily basis with fintech founders innovating to do exactly that.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mary. And I know you're new to the role. It's just a year that you've been at Seccl, but can you give us maybe an introduction about Seccl's vision and mission? I know financial inclusion is quite important for your organization, but what is actually Seccl's mission?
Yeah, I think that's a really great question. At Seccl, our vision and mission is a big part of what we do. So being a tech firm and a custodian, we've always wanted to, I guess, flip the wealth management industry on its head. We say internally that we're rebuilding the infrastructure of investments and advice. We're saying away with old and clunky legacy technology and actually being API-led custodian. We enable people to build investment propositions and investment apps on the latest technology from the ground up in a really customizable way. I guess interesting things to note about the business, particularly is that we were acquired by Octopus in 2019. So we're part of the Octopus Group, which has over £11 billion of assets and includes businesses like Octopus Investments and Octopus Energy, which I think is a really good thing in this space of financial services, showing that we've been around for a long time, not only in financial services, but in energy, which again is quite topical at the moment as well. And that also that Octopus as a group can build really innovative, disruptive infrastructure businesses, as you've seen with things like Octopus Energy as well in the renewable space.
Great, thank you, Mary. So the next question that I have is, how is the wealth management landscape changing? And specifically, you mentioned the cost of living crisis. How is the landscape changing, or has been changing before, and specifically now with the situation that we are living with the cost of living crisis?
Yes. So even though Seccl is B2B, in a way you can say we're B2B2C, and that by providing infrastructure for fintechs and technology firms and retailers, etc., we do see the habits of end customers and how they want to manage their money. I think there's a growing sentiment in times like this where we have high inflation, for people to make more of their money. So they're thinking about, actually, if I'm only getting X% interest in my savings account, how can I get more than that? And maybe they're looking and exploring and doing their own research about investing in the stock market. So consumers, from a consumer appetite perspective, I think during the pandemic, and now with this cost of living crisis that everyone's talking about, we're definitely seeing consumers, I guess you could say, chasing higher interest rates, either through the savings account or current accounts that they're choosing, and then looking to investments as a way to do that, especially for the more medium to long term as well. I think I'm also excited to see consumers choosing investments wisely. During the pandemic, maybe people had a bit more disposable income and they could chuck a couple £100 into crypto or some more riskier assets. I think I get the sense that we're moving away from stock picking and investing in crypto and kind of unique assets that are hard to trade and aren't that liquid, into kind of let's actually understand what builds kind of financial wealth and generational wealth over time, which is kind of not trying to time the market, but actually making sure that you've got time in the market. So instead, you're holding maybe a couple of ETFs, putting however much you can afford in it, and then holding it for a longer period of time. So I guess you could say that investment propositions are bearing that in mind and being a bit more aware as they craft out their proposition of what that looks like. And we've definitely seen that at Seccl. And I think it's interesting to see consumer sentiment and interest go away from crypto and American tech stocks to maybe ETFs and other funds as well. And I think the only other thing to mention is that in this space, is especially because I speak to so many fintech founders on a daily basis, and a lot of us and a lot of your members work in fintech. It can feel like there's so many investment apps already out there, but it's important to note that only 15% of UK adults have a stocks and shares ISA. Only 12% of UK adults now use an investment app. So when we talk about the market opportunity and that stat that I mentioned at the beginning, about £800 billion plus of unlocked retail investments, I'm really excited about what the future holds. What will really move the needle in terms of driving financial inclusion in this space is yet to be seen. And we haven't even spoken about financial advice, because there's one thing to be able to have access to buy certain stocks and shares and assets, but actually, what if you need some more advice alongside that around your risk appetite and how it feeds into your wider financial planning? And only 3% of UK adults receive financial advice. So I'm really excited about these kind of hybrid advice and execution platforms as well that are soon to come.
Thank you, Mary. And talking about this large market opportunity that you mentioned, what are the challenges at the moment? So I believe, you mentioned 15% of adults have an ISA. But is it about awareness, making sure that people understand and know that there are platforms out there that they can use? Is it about financial education? Are there any other challenges that you're encountering at the moment?
I think you've hit the nail on the head. I think some of it is awareness, some of it is accessibility. You might know about something, but you don't know how it applies to you and how it applies to the financial planning and your goals that you want to achieve. I think it's also about doing so in alignment with your values. Some people don't even know that they're investing already via their pension. So they don't even know where to think about they don't know where to showcase their values through their investments or where that's happening already. So those are the things that I think are front of mind when we talk about the challenges from a consumer perspective: the awareness, the access, and then also just feeling a bit stuck. As probably people have spoken about on this podcast before, and I'm sure you can relate to as well, personal finance advice and how you manage your finances is not something that is taught in schools in the UK. So people might be learning from friends or family members, and they might be picking up bad habits as well as good ones.
Yes, that's true. We do have an initiative at Innovate Finance, which is FinTech for schools, where we want to engage with schools and children at early stage, so that they understand that financial and personal finance is super important to have a healthy healthy financial life in the future. Now, talking about Seccl, as you mentioned, as a B2B2C organization company, I imagine that a lot of what Seccl does is about partnerships, whether it's partnering with fintech. You mentioned you talk to a lot of fintech founders in your role. So, what do you think makes a successful partnership at Seccl and then in general in the fintech ecosystem?
Another brilliant question. I think that partnerships are something that are spoken out about a lot in fintech, whether it's between fintechs and corporates or fintechs and other fintechs. And being an API-led fintech, we're obviously doing partnerships all the time. And a lot of it is just kind of basic relationship building principles about being aligned, being on the same page, making sure that you understand your partner's motivations, timelines, constraints, whether that's kind of money or people and expertise. And I think those are the things that I've learned from my time at Seccl, and that definitely we think about on a regular basis as an organization. How can we essentially just become so clearly aligned with our partner? And we're not afraid to say no if we don't think there's a good fit, or if someone wants to launch a trading app on Seccl's technology, and we can say, this is why we don't think there's a good fit, this is our mission, and why, who else you could speak to aside from us. So I think not being afraid to have the hard conversations is really, really important. Talking about short-term versus long-term goals, and then being customer-centric through everything that you do. Who is their target market? How do they want to make their customers feel? A lot of the conversations we're having with partners is about, if you work with Seccl, we can take care of the custody, trading, and execution, so that you can spend more of your time thinking about your target market and what that looks like, and the functions and features that you want to build on top of our API and in your app alongside what we offer. And that is usually an attractive proposition for people. So yeah, all of the not being afraid to have hard conversations, being super honest and transparent, building trust, especially post-pandemic now. I'm really keen to always meet people in person, attend conferences, and the Innovate Finance events are really great for that as well. Just meeting people in the ecosystem, having honest conversations and taking it from there.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. I'm happy to hear that you are enjoying our networking events and our members events as well. So now talking about being customer centric, and you mentioned about financial wellness, financial inclusion. Embedded finance. Embedded finance is one of the most exciting areas of fintech. So how do you think that embedded finance could change and will change consumer behavior and attitudes to financial services?
Yes, I think embedded finance is exciting. I think it's simply just embedding financial services into places where financial services previously were segregated from. People say sometimes kind of meeting them at the customers at the point of need. Good examples being like embedded insurance, buy now, pay later, with all the pros and cons it has. It is a good example of embedded finance. And also the uptake of buy now, pay later. Now it's pretty mainstream. I think the stats are 1 in 3 UK adults uses buy now, pay later. So I think embedded finance has the potential to bring more people into utilizing financial services. Then at Seccl, we're often talking about our dream state of embedded investments, and how, if investments can be embedded into other environments, it could be really exciting. So for instance, if companies can use investments as a way to drive customer loyalty, there've been some kind of pilot schemes around this. How if a coffee shop offers customers shares as part of buying their coffee, then this drives loyalty with the customers that buy the coffee, and is more likely to encourage them to not only buy more coffees, but come back more often as well. So we believe in seeing future use cases like this. We also see use cases of like employers supporting employees to get more involved in their financial well-being as well. And I think embedded investments can be a really exciting proposition in the wealth management industry when we talk about financial inclusion and thinking about people who, to be honest, will never download an investment app. They might see all the ads on the tube when they're going home, but there's a barrier, whether it's just feeling like they don't know enough or feeling nervous to download the app. So by getting investments into other spheres where they're much more comfortable, we think this can drive financial inclusion. An example of that could be if you could invest by your favorite supermarket. So through your loyalty card, maybe instead of rounding up points into kind of cash points, you can invest that into an investment products. That could be really cool. So I'm really excited for those kind of wild ideas to come to fruition. We're seeing some examples of them in other markets, and I think they could be beneficial for UK customers as well.
That's fascinating. And actually, there's so many opportunities for consumers today to get more involved in the management of personal finance. Talking about impact on consumers and on society on a broader level, we host every year a conference in October, which is FinTech as a Force for Good at Innovate Finance. And this is really looking at impact of FinTech on the environment, on society, and on governance of organizations. So is there any projects that Seccl is working on this specific topic? And then how are you driving the agenda further on FinTech, impact of FinTech on society?
Yeah, I'm super excited to attend that event on FinTech as a Force for Good. So looking forward to that. I think the biggest trend that we've seen around FinTech as a Force for Good, not only linked to our mission, is the rise of kind of hyper-personalized propositions in wealth management. The same way neobanks have thought about their target market and their demographic. We're seeing similar things in wealth management where investing apps are focusing on traditionally underserved communities. So that might be women, that might be ethnic minorities, that might be people, different groupings of communities. And why that's great is because, again, working with an infrastructure player like Seccl, that gives you more time to personalize and customize your solution. You can build really segment specific features. And we've already seen that, as I said, in banking, and I'm excited to see its emergence in wealth as well. So there's a gender investment gap, unfortunately, in the wealth management space, the gender pension gap, and there are other kind of pertinent gaps around access and information that I think that really hyper-personalized propositions can solve. And I think that we'll be using FinTech as a force for good for change for the obvious reasons as well. There's a really good report by BNY Mellon called the Inclusive Investment Report, released this year. And it kind of just articulates how big the gender investment gap is. And actually, one of the crazy statistics from that is if women invested at the same rate as men, there would be at least an extra $3.22 trillion of assets under management from private individuals today. So that just gives you an idea globally of how big this issue is of women not investing at the same rate as men, and makes you think about why could this be happening? And actually, I'm excited about the number of fintechs that I speak to on a daily basis now that are thinking about not only launching kind of execution-based DIY investing platforms, but also thinking about the edtech angle. How will they help their customers learn along the way? How do you incentivize learning? If you're going to allow someone to buy a fund or a particular stock, how can you enable them to learn and engage and educate themselves along the way? I think that's really exciting and is definitely FinTech as a force for good.
Thank you, Mary. This is super relevant as a topic because we also found a big gender gap in terms of female leaders in fintechs. We released a report with EY and Innovate Finance talking about female leaders at the top of fintechs, and we are seeing there's still a gap. So there's still work to be done in this space. Now, talking about underserved communities and minorities, and this is a very tricky question, a very difficult question to answer, but how do you think we can get more, diverse talent and minorities into fintech, including, women or other minorities as well?
I wish I had the complete answer to this. It is a hard question, but I do think it's an important conversation to have. I think a lot of it is about role modeling. I think people need to know women and minorities and people from their age group working in these spaces and understand what exactly their role is and what they do. And people still have this perception of whenever something ends in tech that it's just all about software engineering and coding all day. And I, for one, spend a lot of my time speaking to young people and convincing them that there's so many more broader roles in tech that aren't tech related, that actually there's so many non-tech tech roles, especially in fintech, and the convergence of financial services and tech being both male-dominated industries means that the space has a lot of room for improvement. So I think there's definitely something about role modeling. There's definitely something about broadening out opportunities. And even though fintech's no longer that small anymore in the UK, opportunities can just be shared with a handful of people. You tend to see similar people moving around, similar companies. And actually, I hope that we continue to offer things like apprenticeship schemes and work experienced people from traditional industries that are looking to move into the startup space as well, because I think that's important. Just breaking away from becoming a club of people who work in fintech that only speaks to other fintech people, I think is important as well. And then I think community plays a big part. People want to feel welcomed and that there'll be people that look like them, sound like them, have similar experiences, and feel like they can achieve and get to the top as well.
Thank you, Mary. I think community is really central and it's really crucial to keep developing in our fintech ecosystem. That's all for this episode. So thank you very much for tuning in. And thanks again to our guest today, Mary Abesanwa, Fintech Growth Lead at Seccl. Thank you all for listening and join us next time for Coffee with Innovate Finance. Bye for now.